Hello, dear friend. Welcome to this quiet moment we'll share together. If you're listening to this, perhaps you're seeking a gentle refuge from the day's demands, a soft place to rest your weary mind, or simply a peaceful journey into the arms of sleep. This story is your invitation to slow down, to breathe deeply, and to let the world outside fade away. Together, we'll walk through the ancient streets of Kyoto, where time moves like flowing water and peace settles into your very bones. This is a place where you can finally rest. So please, make yourself comfortable now. Find a position that feels just right, perhaps lying down with your head cradled by a soft pillow, or settling into your favorite chair where you feel completely supported. Let your body sink into whatever is holding you, feeling the gentle weight of gravity helping you relax. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and let it flow out through your mouth like a gentle sigh. Feel your chest rise and fall naturally. With each breath, allow your shoulders to drop just a little lower, releasing any tension they've been carrying from the day. Now, gently close your eyes, or let them grow heavy and soft. Starting from the top of your head, imagine a warm, gentle wave of relaxation beginning to flow down through your body. Feel it washing over your scalp, down your face, melting away any tightness in your neck and shoulders. Let this wave of peace continue down your arms to your fingertips, through your chest and back, down through your hips and legs, all the way to your toes. You're safe here. You're exactly where you need to be. And now, let yourself drift. Drift with me into the soft gray morning of Kyoto, where autumn has just begun to paint the world in hushed tones of amber and rust. Let the gentle rhythm of this story carry you deeper into tranquility. And when you're ready, when your mind and body are ready, let it carry you all the way into the sweetest, most peaceful sleep. Come now, let's step together into this world of rain and stone and ancient wisdom, where every moment is designed to help you rest. Naomi's fingers traced the worn leather cover of her journal as she stood at the entrance to Nishiki Market, the ancient covered arcade stretching before her like a tunnel carved from dreams. The morning sky hung low and tender, wrapped in layers of pearl-gray clouds that seemed to hold the city in a gentle embrace. There was something almost maternal about this weather, the way the muted light fell softly through the old glass canopy above, filtering down in gentle pools that illuminated the weathered wooden stalls below. The market was just beginning to stir. Vendors moved with the unhurried grace of people who had performed these same rituals for decades, perhaps generations. Their movements were like a slow dance, each gesture deliberate and peaceful. The sound of their soft footsteps on the stone floor created a rhythm that seemed to match the gentle patter of the first drops of rain beginning to kiss the ancient glass roof above, Naomi breathed in deeply, and the air filled her lungs with the complex perfume of this sacred space. There was the earthy scent of freshly turned soil from the vegetable stalls, mingling with the warm sweetness of steaming rice cakes and the delicate fragrance of green tea leaves being ground somewhere in the distance. The smell of rain-dampened stone added a clean, mineral note that seemed to purify everything it touched. She lifted her grandfather's old camera, a beautiful piece of craftsmanship from another era. Its black metal body worn smooth by countless hands, and felt its comforting weight. But instead of immediately raising it to her eye, she simply held it against her chest, feeling the cool metal warm against her palm. Today was not about capturing moments, but about being captured by them. The first stall she approached was tended by an elderly woman whose silver hair was pulled back into a neat bun. Her hands moved like water as she arranged delicate bundles of herbs, shiso leaves, dark as jade, mint that released its coolness into the humid air, and tiny flowers that looked like scattered stars. The woman's face was serene, her eyes holding the kind of peaceful contentment that comes from a lifetime of simple, meaningful work. Naomi watched as the woman selected a perfect sprig of something fragrant and green, holding it up to catch the dim light. The leaves seemed to glow from within, and when a gentle breeze moved through the market, somehow finding its way through the covered space, the herbs released their perfume like a quiet blessing. The scent was clean and bright, cutting through the heavier aromas around them like a silver thread through rich fabric, moving deeper into the market. Naomi found herself drawn to a tea stall where an older man was performing the ritual of tea preparation with the reverence of a meditation. His movements were so slow and deliberate that watching him felt like witnessing time itself unfold. He heated water in a small kettle, and the gentle hiss of steam created a sound like distant ocean waves, soft and rhythmic and endlessly soothing. The man's hands, weathered and strong, with lines that spoke of decades of this sacred work, lifted the kettle with perfect control. The water poured in a thin, steady stream, and Naomi could hear each drop as it met the tea leaves below. The sound was like rain on leaves, like the first notes of a lullaby, like the whisper of silk against silk. Steam rose from the cup in lazy spirals, carrying with it the most beautiful scent, earthy and floral, with notes of grass and wood and something indefinably peaceful. The aroma seemed to settle into her very bones, relaxing muscles she hadn't realized were tense, quieting thoughts she hadn't known were restless. She accepted the cup when it was offered, and the ceramic felt perfect in her hands, smooth and warm, with the kind of weight that spoke of things made to last. The tea itself was like drinking liquid meditation. It was neither hot nor cold, but perfectly, wonderfully warm, and it tasted like morning mist and ancient wisdom and the quietest kind of joy. As she sighed with contentment, she noticed how the rain had intensified outside, creating a gentle percussion against the glass ceiling. The sound was like nature's own white noise machine, drowning out the distant city sounds and creating a cocoon of tranquility around the market. Each drop seemed to fall in its own time, creating a rhythm that was both random and perfect, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Naomi wandered on, her footsteps silent on the smooth stone floor. The walkway beneath her feet had been worn smooth by countless visitors over hundreds of years, and she felt connected to all of them, all the people who had walked this same path, breathed this same air, felt this same sense of timeless peace. She paused at a stall selling traditional sweets, where colorful mochi sat arranged like small, perfect pillows on wooden trays. The vendor, a young woman with gentle eyes and hands that moved like a dancer's, was dusting the sweets with a fine powder that caught the light like snow. The sight was mesmerizing, each grain of powder falling with its own tiny sparkle, creating patterns that lasted only moments before being disturbed by the next gentle breath of air. The sweets themselves were works of art. Some were pale green as spring leaves, others pink as cherry blossoms, still others white as fresh snow. They looked so soft and inviting that Naomi could imagine their texture without even touching them, smooth and yielding, with that perfect resistance that good mochi has, like biting into a cloud that's been sweetened with honey and dreams. The young woman noticed Naomi's admiring gaze and smiled, selecting one of the pale green sweets and placing it on a small wooden plate. She presented it with both hands and a small bow, and Naomi felt the warmth of this simple kindness settle around her heart like a blanket. The mochi was everything she had imagined, soft and sweet, with a subtle flavor that seemed to change and develop on her tongue, revealing new notes of matcha and vanilla and something that might have been the essence of contentment itself. As she savored the sweet, Naomi found herself at a section of the market where fabrics and textiles were displayed. Bolts of silk hung like waterfalls of color, deep indigos that seemed to hold the mystery of night sky, soft grays that matched the gentle morning outside, and delicate patterns that looked like they had been painted by rain itself. She reached out to touch one piece, and the silk was so smooth it seemed to flow like water between her fingers. The fabric vendor, an elderly man with knowing eyes, watched her appreciation with quiet pleasure. He selected a length of fabric, something in a soft blue-gray that seemed to shift and change in the dim light, and let it unfold in front of her. The material moved like liquid, catching the light and releasing it again, creating patterns that seemed to breathe with their own life. The sound of the silk moving was barely audible, a whisper of fiber against fiber, like the sound of a gentle breeze through tall grass. Naomi found herself mesmerized by the way the fabric seemed to have its own weather system, rippling and flowing, as if moved by invisible currents of air. She touched the silk again, and this time she let her fingers really feel its texture. It was impossibly smooth, so soft it almost felt like nothing at all, as if she were touching pure light made tangible. The sensation was deeply soothing, like running her hand through calm water, or soft fur, or the petals of the most delicate flower. Moving on through the market, she discovered a corner where wooden crafts were displayed. The rich scent of cedar and hinoki filled the air. Wood that had been shaped by patient hands into bowls and boxes and small sculptures. The grain of the wood seemed to tell stories, swooping lines that spoke of wind and water, tight circles that whispered of long, slow years of growth, knots that looked like eyes holding ancient secrets. She picked up a small wooden bowl, feeling its perfect weight in her palm. The wood was warm to the touch, as if it still held some memory of the tree it had come from, some echo of sunlight and soil and gentle rain. The surface was smooth as glass, but with a warmth that glass could never have. And when she ran her thumb along the rim, she could feel the subtle irregularities that spoke of human hands and human care. The craftsman who had made this bowl was nowhere to be seen, but his presence lingered in every smooth curve, every perfect joint. Naomi could almost feel the patience that had gone into its creation, the quiet hours of careful work, the love that had been shaped into the wood along with everything else. She set the bowl down gently and continued her slow journey through the market. The rain outside had settled into a steady, gentle rhythm, and the sound of it against the glass had become like music, a constant, soothing percussion that seemed to slow time itself. Each drop seemed to fall with perfect timing, as if the entire sky had been orchestrated to create this moment of peace. At a stall selling pickled vegetables, she watched an elderly couple working together in perfect harmony. They moved around each other like dancers who had been practicing the same routine for decades, never getting in each other's way, each knowing exactly what the other needed before they needed it. Their vegetables were arranged like jewels, deep purple eggplant, bright white daikon, cucumber green as jade, all glistening with their perfect marinades. The woman looked up and smiled at Naomi, offering her a small taste of pickled cucumber on a tiny wooden spoon. The flavor was complex and soothing, sharp and sour at first, then mellowing into something clean and refreshing that seemed to cleanse her palate and her thoughts at the same time. It tasted like summer rain and careful patience, and the kind of skill that can only come from doing something with love for a very long time. Naomi bowed her thanks and moved on, feeling the warmth of the couple's kindness follow her like a gentle hand on her shoulder. These small connections, these moments of shared humanity, seemed to weave themselves into the fabric of the market, creating an atmosphere of welcome and peace that went deeper than words. She found herself at a corner where the light was particularly soft, filtered through layers of old glass and falling in gentle pools on the stone floor. Here, a vendor was selling brushes and inkstones, tools for calligraphy and painting that looked like they had been crafted by master artisans. The brushes were works of art in themselves, some with handles of carved bamboo, others with jade or ivory, all with bristles that looked soft as silk. The inkstones were even more beautiful, carved from dark slate into shapes that seemed to echo the mountains and valleys of an ancient landscape. One was carved to look like a miniature mountain range, complete with tiny peaks and valleys where the ink would pool and flow. Another was smooth and simple, its surface worn to a perfect polish by countless hands grinding ink across its surface. Naomi imagined the meditative process of making ink, adding water, drop by drop, to the stone, grinding the ink stick in slow, careful circles, watching the black liquid form and deepen until it held all the mystery of midnight in its depths. The very thought of it was soothing. This ancient ritual of preparation, this slow transformation of solid into liquid, of material into art. She picked up one of the brushes, feeling its perfect balance in her hand. The bamboo handle was smooth and warm, and the bristles were so soft they felt like touching a cloud. She imagined drawing with it, making marks that would flow like water, creating images that would emerge from silence like dreams taking shape. The vendor, a middle-aged man with ink-stained fingers and peaceful eyes, demonstrated the brush's flexibility by dipping it in water and making a few graceful strokes on a piece of practice paper. The water moved like liquid light, flowing from the brush in perfect lines that seemed to capture something essential about movement and grace and the beauty of the temporary. As the demonstration ended, Naomi realized that she had been holding her breath, so mesmerized by the simple beauty of brush meeting paper. She exhaled slowly, feeling the breath leave her body like a sigh of contentment, and moved on through the market with steps that felt lighter than air. The rain outside had intensified again, and now she could hear it not just pattering against the glass, but running in small streams down the windows, creating moving patterns of light and shadow on the market floor. The sound was like a lullaby, constant and gentle and endlessly soothing. It seemed to wash away not just the dust from the air, but the tension from her shoulders, the worry from her mind, the restlessness from her heart. She paused at a stall selling traditional fans, where hundreds of beautiful paper and silk fans were displayed like a garden of flowers. Some were painted with delicate cherry blossoms, others with bamboo or mountains or flowing water. The colors were soft and muted pale pinks and gentle greens, misty blues and warm golds that seemed to glow in the dim light. One fan in particular caught her eye. It was painted with a simple scene of rain falling on a pond, the droplets rendered in silver ink that caught the light and seemed to shimmer with their own movement. The fan was opened just slightly, and she could see how the paper was stretched between the ribs like a small piece of captured sky. When she touched the fan, it felt impossibly delicate, the paper smooth and cool, the wooden ribs light as bird bones, but strong with their own integrity. She imagined the process of making such a thing, the careful stretching of paper, the precise painting of each droplet, the patience required to create something so beautiful and so fragile. The vendor noticed her admiration and opened the fan fully, demonstrating how it moved the air in gentle waves. The motion created the smallest breeze, just enough to stir the air around them and bring with it the faint scent of the paper and ink. It was like being touched by a whisper, like feeling the breath of something peaceful and ancient. Naomi continued her journey through the market, and now she became aware of the sounds around her in a new way. There was the soft murmur of voices speaking in gentle tones, the quiet rustle of paper and fabric, the subtle sounds of water and steam and the preparation of food. But underneath it all was something deeper, a sense of harmony, of things being exactly as they should be, of time moving at its own perfect pace. She passed a stall where a man was making fresh tofu, working with white beans and clear water to create something pure and simple and nourishing. The process was like watching a kind of alchemy, the beans becoming milk, the milk becoming curds, the curds becoming soft, white blocks that looked like clouds made solid. The air around his stall was filled with the clean, wholesome scent of soybeans and fresh water. And there was something deeply comforting about the sight of his careful, methodical work. At another stall, a woman was preparing fresh rice cakes, steaming them in bamboo baskets that released their own sweet, grassy fragrance into the air. The rice cakes looked like small white pillows, soft and inviting, and the steam that rose from them seemed to carry with it all the comfort of home and warmth and nourishment. Naomi found herself at the center of the market now, where the glass ceiling was highest and the light fell in the largest, softest pool. Here, time seemed to slow even further, as if this spot were the heart of some great, gentle clock, beating with its own peaceful rhythm. She could hear her own breathing, slow and steady, and she realized that somewhere along this journey, her body had relaxed completely. Her mind had grown quiet. Her heart had found its own easy pace. She sat on a small wooden bench that had been placed in this central space, apparently for people like her who needed a moment to simply be. The wood was worn smooth by countless people who had rested here, and it welcomed her with its warmth and solidity. From this position, she could see the entire market spreading out around her like the spokes of a gentle wheel, each stall a small world of its own beauty and purpose. The rain continued its soft percussion above, and now it seemed less like rain and more like music, a composition written by the sky itself, performed by 1,000 tiny musicians, each drop finding its own note in the vast symphony of water and glass and time. The sound seemed to flow through her body, relaxing muscles she hadn't even known existed, settling into her bones like peace made audible. She opened her leather journal and touched her pen to the paper, thinking she might capture some of these moments in words. But as the ink touched the page, she realized that some experiences were too large for words, too gentle for description, too perfect for anything but simple appreciation. Instead, she found herself drawing not anything specific, just lines that seemed to flow from her hand, like the water from the brush she had watched earlier. The lines became curves, the curves became patterns, and the patterns became something that might have been rain, or might have been music, or might have been the visual representation of contentment itself. She drew without thinking, letting her hand move as it wanted to, and somehow the marks she made seemed to capture something essential about this moment, this place, this feeling of being exactly where she belonged. As she drew, she became aware of a new scent in the air, something warm and comforting that made her look up to see a vendor preparing sweet potato treats, roasting them over a small charcoal brazier. The smell was like autumn made tangible, warm and sweet and rich with the promise of comfort. The vendor's face was gentle in the glow of the coals, and his movements were slow and practiced as he turned the sweet potatoes with a pair of wooden tongs. The sight of the glowing coals and the scent of roasting sweet potato created a bubble of warmth in the cool air of the market. Naomi could feel the warmth on her face, even from several feet away, and it seemed to settle into her chest like a small sun, radiating outward through her body in waves of comfort and peace. She closed her journal and stood, moving toward the vendor with steps that felt like floating. He smiled and offered her a piece of the sweet potato, still warm from the coals, wrapped in a small piece of clean cloth. The warmth of it in her hands was deeply comforting. And when she tasted it, the flavor was everything she had hoped, sweet and rich and satisfying in a way that seemed to nourish not just her body, but her spirit as well. The sweetness was perfect. Not overwhelming, but just enough to make her feel cared for, looked after, as if the universe itself had prepared this small gift just for her. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, feeling the warmth spread through her body and the contentment spread through her mind. As she finished the sweet potato, she realized that the light in the market had begun to change. It was still soft and gray, but now it had a different quality, the dreamy, golden quality that comes when afternoon begins to think about becoming evening. The rain had gentled to the merest whisper against the glass, just enough sound to continue its lullaby, but soft enough that she had to listen carefully to hear it. She began to walk again, but more slowly now, as if her body had learned the rhythm of this place and didn't want to disturb it with anything too quick or sudden. Her footsteps seemed to fall in time with the gentle sounds around her, the whisper of rain, the soft murmur of voices, the quiet rustling of paper and fabric, and the materials of peaceful commerce. At a stall selling ceramics, she paused to admire bowls and cups that looked like they had been shaped by the same patient hands that had formed the mountains and rivers outside the city. Each piece was unique, with glazes that seemed to hold entire landscapes in their depths, blues like deep water, greens like ancient forests, browns like rich earth after rain. She picked up a small teacup, feeling its perfect weight and warmth in her hands. The glaze was the color of mist, with subtle variations that seemed to shift and change as she turned it in the soft light. The rim was smooth against her lips when she pretended to drink, and she could imagine how perfect it would feel to sip warm tea from this cup on a quiet morning, perhaps while listening to rain, just like the rain that was falling now. The potter who had made this cup was nowhere to be seen, but his presence lingered in every curve, every subtle imperfection that made it human and beautiful and real. Naomi could feel the love that had been shaped into the clay, along with everything else, the patience and skill and quiet joy of someone who had found their true work in the world. She set the cup down gently and moved on, carrying with her the memory of its perfect weight and the image of morning tea and rain on windows and all the quiet pleasures that make life worth living. The market was beginning to quiet now. As the day moved toward its gentle conclusion, some of the vendors were starting to pack away their goods, moving with the same unhurried grace they had shown all day. Their movements were like a slow dance of completion, each gesture deliberate and peaceful, as if they were participating in some ancient ritual of ending and beginning that had been performed in this place for centuries, Naomi found herself at the far end of the market, where the covered arcade opened onto a small courtyard garden. Here, the rain had collected in stone basins and was running in small streams between carefully placed rocks. The sound of the water was like music, a gentle trickling that seemed to carry with it all the peace and purity of mountain streams and forest springs. The garden was small, but perfect, with every element placed exactly where it belonged. There were stones worn smooth by rain and time, small plants that seemed to glow in the soft light, and patches of moss that looked like velvet cushions placed for the comfort of small, peaceful creatures. She sat on a stone bench at the edge of the garden and listened to the water and the rain and the gentle sounds of the market settling into evening behind her. The air was cool and clean, washed by the rain and filled with the scent of wet stone and growing things, and the indefinable smell of peace itself. As she sat there, she felt something settling in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in longer than she could remember. It was contentment, but deeper than that. It was the feeling of being exactly where she belonged, in exactly the right moment, with exactly the right amount of everything she needed. She didn't need to be anywhere else, didn't need to do anything else, didn't need to be anyone else. She was perfect exactly as she was, exactly where she was, exactly when she was. The light continued to fade, but so gradually that it felt like the sky was singing her a lullaby, each moment a little softer than the last. The sounds of the market grew gentler, the rain grew softer, and even her own breathing seemed to slow and deepen until she felt like she was floating on the surface of the most peaceful ocean in the world. She thought about her grandfather's camera, still hanging around her neck, and realized that she had taken no pictures today. But somehow, that felt perfect too. Some things were too beautiful to capture, too precious to frame, too perfect to do anything but experience completely, with every sense open and every barrier down. Instead, she had collected something more valuable than photographs. She had collected moments of pure peace, tastes of perfect sweetness, touches of impossible softness, sounds of complete harmony, and sights of absolute beauty. These things were stored not in any camera, but in some deeper place in her body, in her heart, in the very cells of her being, where they would live forever, ready to be recalled whenever she needed to remember what contentment felt like. The rain had almost stopped now, reducing to the finest mist that seemed to hang in the air like a blessing. The last of the daylight was fading into the gentlest twilight, and the vendors were lighting small lanterns that cast pools of warm, golden light throughout the market. The sight was so beautiful, it made her heart ache with gratitude, not a painful ache, but the sweet ache of being too full of beauty to hold it all. She stood slowly, feeling like she was emerging from the most restful sleep of her life, and began to walk back through the market. But now, everything looked different, touched by lantern light and the gentle magic of ending day. The colors were richer, the shadows softer, the very air seeming to glow with its own inner light. As she walked, she felt herself growing lighter with each step, as if she were slowly transforming into something made of peace and contentment and gratitude. Her feet barely seemed to touch the ground, and her heart felt like it was floating somewhere above her head, connected to her body by threads of pure joy. The vendors who were still present smiled at her as she passed, and she smiled back, feeling connected to all of them by invisible threads of shared humanity and mutual kindness. They were all part of this moment, all contributing to this perfect symphony of peace and beauty and quiet satisfaction. She paused one last time at the entrance to the market, turning to look back at the scene she was leaving. The covered arcade stretched away from her like a tunnel of soft light and gentle sounds, and for a moment she felt like she was looking at a dream that had somehow become real, or perhaps a piece of reality that had become as beautiful as any dream. The rain had stopped completely now, and the first stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky above the glass roof. They were faint and far away, but they seemed to be winking at her, as if they too were part of this conspiracy of peace and beauty that had surrounded her all day. She walked out into the evening air, which was cool and clean and filled with the scent of rain-washed stones and distant flowers. The streets of Kyoto stretched out before her, quiet and peaceful in the gathering darkness, and she felt like she was floating through a world made entirely of gentle music and soft light and perfect contentment. As she walked, she realized that she was carrying something precious with her, not just the memory of this day, but the feeling of it, the deep peace that had settled into her bones, and the quiet joy that had taken root in her heart. This was something she could take anywhere, something that would be with her always, a small piece of perfect peace that she could return to whenever the world became too loud or too fast or too hard. The lanterns in the street began to glow more brightly as the darkness deepened, and their light seemed to dance on the wet stones like liquid gold. The sound of her footsteps was soft and rhythmic, and it seemed to blend with the distant sounds of the city settling into sleep, doors closing gently, voices murmuring soft good nights, the whisper of curtains being drawn against the night. She found herself walking more and more slowly, not because she was tired, but because she wanted to hold on to this feeling for as long as possible. Each step seemed to take her deeper into a world of perfect peace, where everything was exactly as it should be, and she was exactly where she belonged. The stars grew brighter as she walked, and she felt like they were lighting her way not just through the streets of Kyoto, but through the rest of her life. She carried with her the memory of rain on glass, and the taste of sweet potato, and the feeling of silk between her fingers. And she knew that these things would always be part of her now, woven into the fabric of who she was. As the gentle night wrapped around her like the softest of blankets, she felt herself beginning to dissolve into the peace that surrounded her. Her thoughts grew quieter, her breathing deeper, her heart slower and more peaceful. She was becoming part of the night, part of the rain-washed stones and the gentle stars and the soft sounds of a city at rest. And in that moment, as peace settled around her like the most beautiful of dreams, she felt herself drifting into the sat, most restful sleep, where the rain still fell gently on ancient glass, and the world was filled with nothing but kindness and beauty and the deepest, most perfect peace. Let yourself drift now, as Naomi drifted into that place where peace lives, where rain falls softly on dreams, and where sleep comes like the gentlest blessing. Rest now in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, in the soft embrace of night, in the perfect peace of letting go.